wanted to get on here and discuss a recent addiction I've come across on YouTube, which is artists talking about why they failed or why they think they failed. And it's a very interesting subject to me. I've been an artist for a long, long time, probably about 20 years, I would say. At least of like work that I could prove, you know. And I've been a working artist for about 10 years. I haven't really had a normal job. I've had a few little weird odd jobs here and there just to pick up extra money, but for the most part, I've basically sustained myself off of art, primarily through music, and then in booking shows in the music business. And I had a tiny little booking company that I eked by with. And I sort of fell out of love with it because I wasn't really creating things anymore, and I was very much ingrained to the behind the curtain side of things, which can get depressing and soul sucking. And so I was sort of lost, didn't know what to do. And then I got into, I made Letterhead, and I got into the whole AI thing, which has now become my new career. And I had always wanted to be a film director. I always knew that. I always knew that's where I was going to end up. I just didn't know how. And when the music thing turned kind of successful, I just sort of went down the path. I've always kind of been that way of like, if I see something's working, I'll like sort of double down on that. But I try a lot of different things so that way I'm not missing something. What I've kind of come to find is I'm a generally pretty creative person in most ways. I've said in other videos, before, but like I'm functionally useless in the real world. I've pretty much been fired from every job I ever had. Barely graduated school. Like all I have ever cared about is just creating things. I'm always sort of cheating on life to go sneak away and draw something or write something, or I'm always just sort of living in my head. That's just how I've always been. And I'm a fairly undisciplined person. I spent a lot of time wasting my time. I spent a lot of time partying, doing narcotics, a lot of different kinds of narcotics. Luckily though, I never really fell down a huge addiction pit and like ruined it. Because I worked in the music business, it's just like, it's kind of a party no matter how high up on the food chain you go. So it was just an environment where drugs and alcohol was always around. I always had a high tolerance to them, and I always had the ability to say no when I've had enough, or just to know that like, no, tonight's not the night to do that. So I never really had it like, drugs and alcohol were not the thing that was ruining my life. What was ruining my life is that I thought I had sort of arrived at my creative career, because I sort of got rid of my notions that I was going to be like a famous anything early on. I didn't really care about that. And I was just, once I moved to a bigger city from my little small town, I met artists that were like middle class artists. They like did whatever they wanted, but they made enough, through their little side business with their art or whatever. But I had never really thought about that before. And the idea that there are just people that, they get to do whatever they want because they doubled down on their own creativity. So with the AI stuff, that's what I've kind of tried to do with this. And it seems silly, I'm sure, but I still wear the mask and I do stuff because like in my previous artist life, I did have fans. I still have fans there. I have people that, are just fans of kind of me, because for a long time I was just going live on Facebook and sort of talking to artists. What it really had happened is I cultivated an audience of artists. My particular works, while people liked them and I always got good feedback on them, and I got booked a lot as a live performer. Like I was a very strong live performer. And I built a cool little brand for myself. But in terms of online numbers, or like, it'd be kind of hard to prove the impact I had in my artist community through just my music. And I had a way bigger impact through booking and curating events and bringing people together and kind of connecting artists and, this videographer to that rapper or whatever. And I had just sort of fell out of love with everything because I wasn't doing anything for myself. I wasn't doing anything that was risky. I knew much more about the business, so I was overthinking everything. I was trying to when you start learning about the business, you try to be ahead of the curve. and you try to be like, well, yeah, and then this is big, so we're going to do that. And it's like, and then by the time you get to the thing, it's already disappeared. It's already on to something new. And I started realizing that the reason things like the music business or creativity in general seem they seem like a moving target, it's actually because they never fundamentally change. And a few technologies have come along to change how creative businesses work, and social media is definitely one of them. So I guess the first thing I'll say as to why I see most artists fail, number one, their heart's just not in it, and they're not prepared to live without joy or comfort for their project. That is like the first barrier for entry. I think to be a successful artist of any kind, you have to be prepared to be a fucking loser for a while. Like, you have to be prepared for some embarrassing Thanksgivings. You have to be prepared for some like weird looks from people on dates of just like, oh, okay, so like you're trying that out. A lot of these videos I've seen on YouTube, people talking about like, oh, my art business failed, I can't sell my paintings and stuff. And that is wild to me. And I've talked before about my opinion on wall art. I don't really give a fuck about it. I never have. But I respect it. Paintings are, they're paintings. Like, nothing more needs to be said. But I've also seen just the glut and the slop of that world and just fan art and stuff. And yes, it was made with the human hand, so it's fucking valid and all that. And I get it. It is. There's a lot of fan art that I really enjoy. Some people could classify some of the stuff I've made as fan art, I guess. But I am surprised. I'm always shocked when I find out that people are like, I'm going to try and make it as a painter. And that's not the shit on the painters themselves. It's not the shit on painting. It's just that, like, in this day and age, when people are so inundated with stuff, painting in general is a very old art form. And it's got a very well-established kind of world and hierarchy, and it's just a risky fucking thing. And with Etsy and all the other stuff, it's less risky now. I get that, but man, it's just like, to supplement an income in this shitty economy, that's crazy to me. And so I guess that'll bring me to my second point, which is you have to be prepared to treat your creativity like a business if you're going to try and make a living off of it. These are not philosophies for how to be an artist and all that. That's just like, you got to figure that out on your own. My thing I'm trying to tell people about is like, if you're really like me and you're a fucking moron in the real world and you can't, like, all you've ever really been able to do or care about is your creativity, well, you have to figure out how to make money from it in one way or another. Everybody does. And that's why so many people are mad at AI, because that was like their badge of honor. That was their identity. That was everything about them. And even though they landed some, gig at Colgate making fucking toothpaste logos, they still get to say, oh, well, I'm a graphic designer at dinner parties or whatever. But it's not what they set out to do. It's not what they actually wanted, but they at least get to say, like, hey, I escaped the normie wage slave real world trap. And I used to think that way too. And it's a really snobbish and stupid way of looking at the world. And you have to realize that it's just like, everywhere you have to justify your own existence. Everybody does in every age of history, whether by by hook or by crook, in any which way. Some people lay on their back to get it. Some people work in a coal mine. Some people sacrifice their fingers, like my mom, she sews, and like her hands look 10 years older than she does. She looks very good for her age, but her hands, and it's just because of how much she's used them, because she sewed her whole life. Whatever you put your bodily energy into for your whole life, it'll start to show. I have way more gray hairs in my beard than a man of my age should have, and that's mostly because of 80,000 cigarettes I've probably smoked or whatever. And you have to live with the consequences of your actions. You have to live with the consequences of the lifestyle you choose to lead. And many people get into art believing that it's an easier lifestyle, and it can be if you're successful. But most people aren't successful. I would say only 5% of people that actually try this stuff even get a chance to be successful. And that's in this day and age with all of the extra tools that we have to help us. We bitch about social media, we bitch about the internet and what it does to creativity and artistry and, the platforms people have to use to get into their, to get their art out there. But at the same time, they're pretty amazing tools. The idea that I can just record this video and I'll be able to chroma key in green screen stuff and put myself in this giant empty back room on a 2D screen that I then screen record, it's amazing. I'm poor. I'm a poor person and I have this stuff. Now, I guess on paper you probably couldn't say I'm poor. I feel poor though because I have children. But once I started making money from music and my creativity, I could not go back. I tried a couple times. Going back to a real world job was really hard. And I hate the way a lot of working artists talk about the real world, or especially like podcasters and entertainers, and because they always try to be like, well, we give you a little bit of relief from your shitty fucking stupid normie soul-sucking job that you fucking hate probably. And I don't think that's the case for a lot of people. I think a lot of people work normie jobs and they enjoy it because their identity isn't tied up in their job. Some people just don't care about flexing on the internet like that. And entertainers really think we're so fucking special because we do have a little audience of people. And that's something we should be grateful for. And it is something special. I know I'm special. I know what I do is special. I've had enough external validation to tell me that. And I've had financial validation, and I've had, but before I started the AI stuff, I was, I probably lived the last 3 years with less than $40 in my bank account at any one time. And it's just because I had a child, I wasn't ready. Not that I wasn't ready mentally or emotionally, I wasn't ready financially. Because I also wasn't ready for the dollar to just fucking plummet and just eggs to be $6 a dozen. And so very quickly reality hit me that the slow rate at which I was doing stuff is not enough. But I also wasn't inspired to do it anymore. I hated the music industry. All I wanted to do was hang out with my son, and that's still pretty much all I do. AI just allows me to do that more, but I was just phoning it in for the last year because I was completely uninspired. The business just destroyed how I looked at music. I didn't listen to music at home for probably 2 years. And I know that sounds insane and hard to believe, but I'm serious. I really didn't. If I would drive somewhere, I'd have the radio on or something, but I had no desire to be a fan of music. I had no desire to hear it. I didn't want to hear my friends' music that they were making. It was 10 years deep, and I went through every level of it. And I was good at it, man, and people respected me for it, and I found a great community of people, and I will always cherish that time in my life, and I will always be proud of that time in my life, as degenerate and ridiculous as it was. A lot of good things happened, and every single one of those things and lessons that I learned then equipped me for what I would have to do now. And that is the part I think I'm most grateful for. And I guess what I would say is too, artists aren't willing to put in the real time, and they're not willing to reach out and swing off of branches that are just close enough to them. I have wasted a lot of time. I don't really consider it wasting time. It's time you have to spend. But I've spent a lot of time with things that weren't readily fruitful in the beginning. It was a person that reached out. It was something that I didn't really understand, or an organization, or some random email. But since I started becoming a serious artist and actually putting my stuff out there and trying to build an audience, my theory was always, it was like that Jim Carrey movie, Yes Man, where he just says yes to everything. And I had lived so much of my life being incredibly fearful and timid and cowardly with my own creativity and stuff like that. And it was because I had a pretty decent social life. I never really was never a loner growing up. I always had a group of friends, and in my 20s, all that happened. But as soon as I became a serious artist, it became much, much harder to maintain social relationships. It became much, much harder to relate to people that just were living for the weekend. And so I guess that circles around to what I was trying to say of like, I don't think that artists are better than other people at all. I really look up to a lot of normie people that I know, and I don't use that as a pejorative. But I admire people that are just like, no, dude, like I actually did things right. And like I planned for the future, like unlike a dumbass. Like I didn't risk everything, and now like my kids have what they need. And if one of us gets sick, it's not going to end our entire lineage of finances. That's sweet. I was incredibly reckless with my artistry, and especially to get to the point where I'm at now, I don't regret it because I knew I was going to get to this point. But to try and convince someone you have a child with and are building a family with of that, even with prior years of external validation to prove that I know what I'm doing, with a completely new thing, I might not. So I've taken incredibly reckless risks for my artist career. And I don't always feel the best about that, and I often feel the consequences of that. Things I put off, things I didn't treat as important, friendships I didn't treat as important. But plenty of non-artist people do those same things. Plenty of people sacrifice a lot of their personal life for their career. And I don't view my ability to make money off art as the biggest part of my identity. I view my ability to maintain a consistent vision for over decades. I think that one big part of why people... Also, this is like totally rambling. Like, I'm not going to try and have this structured. Like, I'm just fucking talking. But I think a lot of artists believe that skill is much more important than it is. And I'm going to take a drink before I do this next part. This is a terrible drink if you're thirsty. It just makes everything drier. All right. Back in the day, it was good enough to be skilled, and you could also be original, and sometimes that helped and sometimes that hurt. The business, film business, music business, things were a lot more rigid. And then they got really, really creative for a while. And then around the time of Snapchat and TikTok, somewhere in there, things got really rigid again. And now we live in this situation where algorithms those are the gatekeepers. They basically kind of choose what happens. If you're just trying to play the game cold, if you're just going in, you just started some skill, you start your little Instagram or social media for it, and then it, either takes off or it doesn't. What I see from most artists and why they fail is they don't, you have to be the best salesman of your work. You have to be the best advocate for your work. Artists for some reason are terrible at appraising their work and understanding what's valuable about it. Most artists, I would have artists go to me all the time about their set list, you know what I mean? If I knew their songs and stuff, and a million different fucking things. And I would always tell them, man, nobody cares. Nobody fucking cares, dude. They just want you to make the decision. There's so many things that are not worth overthinking when it comes to your own work. And we have better tools than ever with social media that tell us what does the best and what people like the most, if that's what you're trying to do. But sometimes, and I'm grateful because I feel like I'm cultivating an audience like this, people just want you to be as weird as possible. People are there for what you're there for. But a lot of artists are really, really bad at knowing what they like about their own shit. And then I've also seen a lot of artists that just don't like their own shit. A lot of artists just simply don't want attention. They like want to create their stuff, but they don't want to have to show people. But they somehow want paid for it. And it's like, well, dude, you got to get over one of those. You know, like you can't just hope it all works out. You can't post once a month and expect traction on social media. Artists are so fucking lazy with social media. It drives me insane. I don't care if you have a 40-hour-a-week job. It's easy, dude. In this day and age, it's easy. There's a trillion fucking YouTube channels and Instagram and TikTok accounts telling you how to use your social media in the right way, telling you efficient, time-effective ways of making your content. You've got a fucking computer in your pocket. Like, you're fucking lazy. You're gonna sit there and work on album art and not just take a picture of you working on the album art? Like, just show people your process. Just find content, dude. It doesn't have to all be art. It doesn't have to all be fucking the best thing ever. Stop overthinking it. Just post your shit on social media. And like, if it's not working, post something different. But figure it out, man. Because if not, what the fuck else are you doing? You're gonna meet 10 fans at a time in a show? You're gonna meet your fans one at a time at every film festival appearance you can't afford to go to? Get the fuck out of here, dude. If you want to try and do this stuff, you need to just take your social media seriously. And you don't have to do the fucking like, hey guys, yeah, today we're fucking meh. You don't have to do that. There's a way to do it where you're comfortable with it and they're comfortable with it. You just have to be patient and consistent. You have to be able to do those little things long term to watch a tree grow. Like, trees don't grow overnight, but eventually they do, and they grow branches, and leaves, and seeds for more trees. So, like, I don't care if you paint, if you're making an album, if you're making a film. Oh, well, I don't have the time because of blah, blah, blah. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You have the time. Absolutely, you have the time. And the thing is, I am not one of these like hustle hard bro, sacrifice every bit of joy and happiness for your career. I don't preach that shit. I used to. It's fucking stupid. It'll make you unhappy. It's not the way a human life was set up to be. And you're an artist, so you're probably mentally ill anyway. Because artistry in general, I think, is a mental illness. But people just don't take their shit seriously. They don't understand that life costs money and that your business has to make at least enough to pay for those costs. They don't understand that everything you do is, the audience that loves it, you have no idea who they are yet, and you have to find them. They don't understand that you have to be the best salesman for yourself. You have to be able to present your stuff in a good way. You have to have trailers. You have to have different types of content, man, because it's easier than ever to make. And you used to just have to fucking pay a guy to do this. And I'm not even talking about with AI. I'm talking about the 10 years before AI. AI has been in music for fucking ever. That's nothing new. Like Suno and stuff like that is, but with plugins and like learning machines in music, super old school. Not a big deal at all anymore. And it's just like, if you're an autodidact of any kind creatively, like, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to make some type of quick, easy social media content. There's just no reason. So, private number calling me. I got feds calling me now, dude. But artists just don't understand the world they're stepping into. And I've had enough validation now that I have no problem knowing I can kind of get it out the mud and, hustle my way out of it. And sometimes I have to do that. I've had to do it a lot these past 2 years. But now, because I just said yes to the AI shit and didn't give a fuck about anything after that. And I still have to teach myself and pinch myself not to. Because I started to for a little bit, worrying about, well, my audience like this, so I should do this, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you can know that information. But like now, it's just, I want to just push shit as far as I can. I just want to push shit as far as I can and try and realize my dreams and like vision for the type of films I want to make to a T. That's the only thing I'm concerned with. Now it helps because I've had the little extra boost of sometimes my videos go viral and I get a nice injection of fans and stuff like that. Let me see who the fuck this is right now. Hold on.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail, press 2.
No, thank you. Okay. So, I guess what I'm saying is, if you're an artist, man, you just gotta be prepared to be uncomfortable. You've gotta be prepared to look stupid. You have to be prepared to feel lonely. It will happen. It's not that, you're not doing it right if that's not happening, or like you're not doing it right unless you've got haters. It's just that it will happen. And you also have to rebuild your audience. And like I had made one of the biggest mistakes you can make, which is having an audience of artists. I had tons of really well-respected artists. I had a lot more artists that were bigger than me that followed me and listened to what I said than just normal people that liked what I did. And that's how I knew that I was on the wrong path and that I shouldn't have really been there anymore. I still make music. I compose pretty much all of the music for all of my videos. So that's been nice, and it's been fun to get to stay connected to it through that. Because that whole period where I wasn't listening to music, the only thing I was listening to was movie scores. Because my whole life I've dreamed of being a filmmaker. And I was making music videos and editing for the past 5 and 10 years. I've done podcasts for a long time. Like, I did a lot of different media stuff. So that now, and like, people just let me down. And people don't move as fast as I want them to move. And I'm a control freak. And I really try to get it down to where it's like, I can do this without anybody else. So now that I can, and I know that, I'm free to find who I really want to do it with, because I know I can't do it and scale it by myself. Now that I have like a real feedback loop of people telling me what they like and blah, blah, blah. So artists just need to, if you really think you're going to make a living in 2025 in whatever fucking gay ass, expensive ass city you live in, or your little small town where no one fucking is, you better be prepared to be outside of the box. This is the last thing I'm going to do or say. The next era of creativity and artistry that's coming is going to belong to people that genuinely have a vision. It will no longer be good enough to be skilled or talented. Everyone is fucking talented at something. I knew a girl who could blow fucking bubblegum bubbles like 5 feet wide. It was crazy. I couldn't understand it. I can't even do a little one. But like, everybody's talented at something. Talent doesn't fucking mean anything. Most artists that are out are good. I think the ratio of good to bad artists now is like crazy in favor of good artists, but that's why everything feels like it sucks. Because it's just good. It's not new. Things are supposed to have flaws. Art is supposed to have flaws. Because art is now dominated by the technology industry, technology and tech bros have one prime directive, and that's to optimize and get to perfection. They are people born with a spiritual defect that causes them to want to perfect humanity with machinery. We can go down this rabbit hole at a later date, but that's what I believe. And people that have to gamify and quantify everything are in charge of what creatives have to do to find their audience and connect with people. And that causes everything to get this feeling of sameness, and it's just algorithmic, and it's just like, oh, everything's just a trend. But now we've had an oversaturation of that, and the rubber band is snapping back. AI slop is going to be largely demonetized, more so than it already has. And that's a great thing, especially for good AI creators. But I just feel like you have to be able to, you have to have a spin on it. You've got to have a fucking vision, man. You have to have a different way of looking at the medium you're presenting your art through. The best part about art is its limitations. There are things a book can do that a play can't, and a play can do that a movie can't, and a movie can do that a video game can't, and a video game can do that a painting can't, and a plate of food can do that none of it can. And you have to have some kind of take on it. You have to have some kind of spin on it that no one else has. Because I fucking promise you, man, there's not as many original ideas out there as you think. The competition is not that fucking stiff. And you're not all competing for the same eyeballs. There's a lot of eyeballs out there. But if all your shit is just good, it's worse than if it was bad. Some people are known because their shit is so bad, but they still make it somehow. Are they a bad artist? As long as they're being true to themselves, like, that's the fucking dream. Guys like Uwe Boll, you know, or what's his name, the Room guy. You know, if that's his pure, true vision, and yeah, it sucks, it's objectively terrible in its technical skill, but like, it's still art. It may not be good art, you know. Good art is pretty objective. I think there's like an easy way to tell if something's good. Bad art is subjective, though. I think there's a distinction and difference there. So you have to be original, man. You have to have some other spin on it. A good example I like to give is MDE and like Sam Hyde and that whole orbit of people. Sam Hyde like isn't funny. I don't think, like, barely any of their skits have ever once made me laugh. He barely ever makes me laugh. But the idea, the parts where I'm laughing at him the most is about the stuff that he thinks is funny. Like, the fact that a guy like him exists is funny. And like that he makes these skits that fucking suck. And this shit that just has no point or no joke. And it's just meant to make you uncomfortable. To me, it's funny that he is like that. The shit he thinks is funny is not funny to me, but the fact he thinks it's funny is. And they go so hard at their brand of shit. And they have such a cult following, despite being like pretty openly anti-Semitic, pretty, you know, like they're just out there. They're just radical and they're out there and they're unlikable and they're brash and they're weird. But people love them for that because they package it in this way that people have never seen before. And they do it with a little bit of panache and a little bit of artistry. You know, their graphics, their branding, their merch, the way their website's set up, like, and I use them as an example. You don't have to like MDE, but watch their stuff because it's so amazing because, like, they of all people should be failing. Like, they are not that funny, but they have figured it out how to be funny in their own original way, that's what gave them their success. Doesn't matter what a just casual YouTube viewer, think of them, because they have fans that think much bigger and spend money. And they, to me, are just like, I admire them so much. Because, like, I'm a fan, like, you know, I'll listen to, like, Charles Carroll and stuff like that. And I think Nick's really funny. But, like, Sam Hyde in general, like, just a genuinely unfucking likable dude, I think. But the fact that he's so unlikable is hilarious. And, like, that's what's funny. And they just found an original way to do it. They just found an interesting, vulnerable, realistic, but also out there, fantastical way of presenting their stuff. And I'm sorry, but that's what it fucking takes, man. There's an army of people that are doing just good enough. There's an army of people that are doing just, you know, like, well, we can fucking, you know, like, start a tutorial YouTube. We could do camera reviews, you know, or we could review people's songs online. And it's like, okay. It's like, okay. Is that really what you set out to do, or is that what you're settling to do? And shout out to those people that are just like, no, this is literally like where my talent peaks. This is what I do, and it's really good. Shout out to them. That's awesome. Get your bag. But I think a lot of people are settling because they're finding out they have nothing original to say. And that's why there's an army, or not an army, but like a catalog of videos on YouTube of like what to do when you're uninspired, what to do when you don't feel creative. It's like, have you ever considered maybe you're just not creative? Maybe you're just talented. Maybe you're just skilled. Like, just because you can do the things doesn't mean your brain is equipped to be at the forefront of it and to see things that aren't there yet and forge paths that haven't been gone down yet. Traveled down, I think. So, anyway, I think that's the long and short of it. Is like, if you really want to make it in this day and age, with how saturated everything is, with how difficult it is to break it.